is Detective Tolbert with the Redmond Police Department. This is an interview for case number 23-009170. The date is April 11th, 2023. The time is approximately 11:22 a.m. Do you mind just hanging out for a bit?
You want me to stand here, out there?
Just, you can be nearby.
Okay.
By your phone. We have our duties over here.
Alicia and Custer, be good with this?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. There you go. Who's else?
And then, do you mind letting just let you know that the 7-5 and 7-6 are in the interview room with them? Thank you, man. Okay, Buck? Is it okay if I call you Buck?
Sure.
Okay. I want to let you know that the room is being visually and audibly recorded.
I figure.
Okay. I'm going to read you the same thing I wrote you out there, okay? You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can be used against you in the court of law. The right to talk to an attorney. The right to talk to an attorney before answering any questions. You have the right to have an attorney present during the questioning. If you cannot afford an attorney, one will be appointed for you without cost before or during questioning if you so desire. You have the right to exercise the above rights at any time. Do you understand these rights?
Mm-hmm.
Having those rights in mind, do you wish to talk to us now?
Sure.
Okay. Any idea why we're sitting here?
I have a million ideas.
Okay. What do you think?
What do I think? So you want me to just incriminate myself instantly? Huh? I think my life's over. I mean, I've already been arrested twice. This is the third time, and it's just everything just gets worse and worse all the time. So I don't know. This just sucks.
I imagine it does. Do you have an idea of why you're getting arrested again?
No. I mean, I imagine it's related, but I don't know exactly why, though.
Okay. Would you be surprised to learn that more children have come forward?
I guess not.
Okay. Why wouldn't that be surprising to you?
Because it's been all over the news and everything, and I'm sure everyone's talking about it, so now people are asking all kinds of questions and everything. I mean, I know I've made mistakes in my life, but I don't know. I wasn't in a position to view things the same way that I do now.
Okay. So something's changed.
What do you mean something's changed?
I'm trying to understand what you mean by that. You viewed things differently before?
Yes.
Okay. So that's what I said, something's changed?
Yeah.
What changed?
I went to jail.
Okay. So what makes you think differently now?
The understanding of consequences is definitely completely different.
Okay. So am I right to guess that that means that you understand consequences more now, or?
Yes.
Okay. So I guess my question then is what happened before when you didn't have the same understanding of consequences?
I didn't view everything the same way.
Okay. Can you expand on that? I guess I'm not following you.
I don't really want to expand on that. I mean, it just feels like my whole life's over and I hate it.
Okay. I mean, there are very serious charges against you.
Yeah, I imagine.
Okay. How many children can I expect?
I don't know.
But I don't know who would know.
Well, I'm just not sure. Like, I'd have to sit down and think forever just to be sure I didn't forget anything or whatever.
Okay. Would it help to write it down?
I have a question.
Sure.
Would it be any surprise to you to find out that I don't want to be alive right now?
What I can understand about that statement, trying to unpack it, okay, because I'm not in your shoes, but I'm going to try to empathize.
Sure.
You have a lot stacked up against you, and I can understand that. I'm sure that your future prospects look terrifying right now.
I don't think I can ever get a job again, so yes, that's very accurate.
I don't want you to think, maybe this means nothing coming from me, but I don't want you to think that your life is over. Your life has definitely changed.
Yeah, I get that.
Okay. But I don't want you to have those thoughts, and I'm going to do everything that I can to protect you even from yourself. Okay? So I appreciate you telling me that that's how you're feeling right now, but I'm not going to let you hurt yourself.
So your goal is to make sure that I suffer until I'm dead.
I don't want you to suffer, but my
Have
job...
you been to jail?
I have not been to jail.
Yeah, you don't know what it's like.
I don't.
Everyone there says that every single child molester should just be killed. Every person there, you can't let anyone find out why you were arrested, okay? And everyone asks why you were arrested. What are you in for? Very first thing everyone says, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how am I to be expected to incriminate myself in a sense that, you know, it just means that I'll be stuck in jail longer or whatever, right? At this point, I've made bail twice. There's no way in hell I could do it again, okay? And everyone who hears that I made bail is like on the news and everywhere else, they're gonna say, oh, it's so he can go do it again, and that's bullshit, because I haven't done anything since December 10th when I was first arrested. I haven't left my house except to work on a project with a friend. I haven't done anything with anyone. I haven't touched any kids. I haven't hardly talked to any kids ever, right?
Since December 10th.
Yes. So I do everything I possibly can to not make anything worse, and yet it doesn't matter, because if you get arrested again, then the news just says, oh, you went out and did it again, which is bull, because I didn't. Okay? There's nothing I've done that could make things worse, but there's nothing I can do to make anything better.
You're stuck in a very difficult position.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. If I could get a guarantee that I can get put to death, I would write a full confession of absolutely everything I've ever done.
I need you to understand that I would never make
I know.
that deal.
No
That deal
one
doesn't
will ever-
exist, and it
yeah,
never will.
Which is why I don't want to talk about stuff, because all it's going to do is prolong everything else.
Okay. I think what I'm worried about, and I understand that our motivations and goals may be very, very different.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm worried about is everything that occurred from the timeline you're providing me, is that I think that you caused a lot of harm. Whether you meant to cause the harm or not, I think
Which I
that you
never did.
caused a lot of harm before December 10th.
Mm.
That's the time frame you're giving me, that nothing happened after that date. But
Absolutely.
before that date, I think that you caused a lot of harm for a lot of families. But I don't understand, and I don't know if I ever will, how big that is, how many victims are out there, and how many phone calls the Redmond Police Department is going to receive from families. Or how many adults there are at this point who can look back on their life and remember a time with you.
0.
0?
I'm fairly certain.
Okay. So you're giving me an end date, December 10th.
Mm-hmm.
When did these kind of behaviors start?
I don't know. I think 2018, maybe 2017. It's probably like the earliest of anything.
Okay.
But I mean, I can't give you actual dates. So I don't know.
What makes you think 2017 or 2018?
Because the people involved, like, that's the. I didn't know him or whatever. Nothing happened before then.
Okay. Then tell me about the very first time that you can remember.
I think it might. Stupid. I've heard his statement. I know what he said is sort of accurate, but not.
Okay.
You know, because I mean, obviously he wasn't all that old, so he wouldn't remember things like I do. But you know, he said in his statement that like things happened multiple times. Things happened kind of twice, but really once.
Okay.
So, and this is all sort of what he talked about. But there's this thing at church that's called home teaching, right? Which they changed the name of or whatever. It's still basically the same thing. But you go over and you teach a lesson or whatever. And of course he sat next to me because he always wanted to sit next to me. That kid adored me for some reason. And then I didn't realize it, but he'd wrap my arm around him, which is the thing he typically did. And then it took me a while to notice that he was like moving my arm around. And it was rubbing my hand against his pants, and I didn't even realize it until I did. Then I, because there's people in the room, so I whispered to him, "What are you doing?" And he said, "It feels good." Like, he didn't say it loud or anything. I whispered, so he whispered, and I told him that we couldn't do that. And then another time in church, he asked me if I could do it again, and I said no, because, his parents were there and could see or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally he convinced me to do it. And that was the time that people noticed. So I think, but those incidents were like years apart, probably at least a year, maybe 2, I don't know. Which is why I think 2018 might be around the earliest, but I don't know.
Were there other kids?
Yeah.
Was there somebody that you can remember?
This is the part that sucks. I feel like I'm just never gonna have a friend ever again in my life. It's like, you know, how do I explain this? I've never sought this out.
Okay.
You know, I've never wanted to get to know a family because of their kids or anything like that. That's never been my goal. That's never been how anything ever happened, right? Same, like, I never even thought about sitting with them at church or anything. One day they come into the building, you know, it's early, it's sort of early because I was always there early at that time. And I mean, this was a long time ago. It was probably 3 or younger at this point. But anyway, they walk in and his sister grabs my hand and says, "You're sitting with us," and drags me into the chapel, right, to sit with them. Like, it wasn't premeditated.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
I never tried to harm kids. I never tried to, like, it all seems so, I don't know, accidental. Like, that's what generally would happen, is some kid would say or do something that would just... Like this one kid, I'm sitting next to this family in church, this kid turns to me and says, "My pee-pee is hard." And I said, "Yeah, they do that sometimes, just ignore it," right?
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah.
the most that ever happened with him, right?
Yeah.
But those kinds of things happen with a variety of kids over years, and like sometimes something happened and sometimes something didn't, right?
Okay.
And I don't know which kids remember what, I don't know.
Do you remember which kid said that his pee-pee was hard?
Yes. And I don't want to tell you his name because I haven't touched anyone in his family. I don't want to ruin my whole relationship with them, even though they probably already don't trust me.
Okay.
Do you have a rough estimate of how many kids, you know, have this like accidental interaction has happened where something has been brought up and that they've initiated this like conversation, or
Probably like 6 to 8 or something.
6 to 8 different kids or different conversation?
Different kids.
And you believe that that started?
I think so.
Okay. And that was the same kind of dynamic where
Yeah,
he's
they'd
like
ask-
initiating.
They'd ask me something, or yeah, exactly. That's
Okay.
Were they like all the same age? Do you remember? Or
roughly, I don't know, young, curious. Like that seems to be common. I mean,
You're
it's not
saying,
like,
you're saying like common about like age?
no, I mean like them being curious about stuff was common.
Oh, okay, sure.
Like, I never just walked up to a kid and said, "Hey, you know what sex is? Do you want to learn about it? Do you want me to teach you?" You know, like that's just weird.
Yeah.
And
Do you find that like it was more boys or there were
oh,
more
it's
curious?
definitely
Or?
boys.
Okay.
So, I mean, it wouldn't matter who knows this now, I suppose, because no one's going to ever trust me again in my life. But when I was, I don't know, 12 or 13, actually when I was 11, I fooled around with some kids that I knew. Like, this is something I understand is fairly common. Tons of people will eventually talk about it or whatever. But the thing is that everyone seems to grow out of it, and I assumed I would grow out of it. But when I was like in, I don't know, maybe 8th grade, I noticed that while everyone else started talking about girls and everything, I was not talking about anything, but I was definitely interested in boys and not girls. The problem is that never changed. And I wish it did, because this is why my whole life has sucked, okay? I've had 2 major problems in my life. One, insomnia, and the other one is this. And I've tried my damnedest to not, act on it forever.
So by this you mean like, kind of like you grew up but didn't outgrow, like, what do you?
I guess the sexual interest in boys.
Okay. I just want to make sure that I'm like understanding what you're saying, that's all.
But here's the thing. If you had that problem, imagine someone said that being heterosexual was illegal.
Mm-hmm.
But if anyone found out about it, they think you're the scum of the earth.
Yeah.
Okay? They all want you dead. They think you should be murdered or, not murdered, killed, whatever.
Yeah.
Who do you talk to about it? No one. Ever. You can't. Okay? I'm in a unique position that pretty much nothing I can say will ever convince anyone that I didn't do anything. So there's no point anymore. Man, my mouth is dry.
Do you want me to grab your water?
Sure, that'd be great.
Sure. Can you grab some like little waters from like where they have like where it's bottles of water?
I think I'm understanding what you're saying, and it sounds like it's been very, very difficult, and that you've
It's
had
impossible.
to keep a pretty big part of yourself secret.
Sorry, they're little, so.
You're adorable.
Little tiny waters.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I've always thought their water tasted weird, but anyway.
Is that Kirkland's signature, or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm sure they do what everyone else does and put something in it so it tastes different than just water, but potassium bicarbonate, oh, they do. And calcium citrate, sodium chloride, there's salt in there. Anyway,
No.
so getting back to the point I was making. You can even find hotlines and stuff, right? Like people will say, oh, if you have, particular issues, you should call this number. You know what that looks like? A trap. That's exactly what that looks like. That looks like a, hey, why don't you just tell the police right now how screwed up you are?
Yeah.
So you can't talk about it. You can't let anyone find out. So you try to, not do anything and hide absolutely everything. But, ask animals or anything else, or anyone, how easy it is to not do anything sexual at all whatsoever in your entire life, right? And you might have some inkling of an understanding of what it's like to have a brain the way that mine works, because it's not like I asked for this. It's not like I ever wanted this.
So you talked about like the 1-800 numbers or whatever. Did you ever like explore online or sometimes there's like chat rooms or people of like mind? Was that ever something you explored?
I've never talked to anyone about this.
Okay.
You hear stories, you see stuff on like TV shows or whatever, and they're always talking about how there's like these groups of people who all coordinate and help each other out and all. I've never done anything like that. There's like the fear that anyone finding out, the fear of anyone finding out kept me from ever wanting to ever talk to anyone about it. Right?
Sure. I mean, like
even anonymously,
okay, so you never like want like to talk with like-minded people, maybe?
Never. I'm not aware. Unless you do a search for sex offenders in your area, there's no way I would even know at all who anyone could be. In fact, just the other day, out of curiosity, I decided to look up somebody that I had known, someone I, technically went to church with. And I wondered, because I was their home teacher too. This guy was married, him and his wife, and they had a son, I guess, that, because they had a giant picture of him on the wall, but they didn't have a kid. So I asked them, they said, oh, he was put up for adoption for some reason. I didn't know why. So I couldn't remember the guy's name, and finally, just the other day, I remembered what his name was. So I decided to search And sure enough, he shows up as, I just searched for his name.
Mm.
Couldn't find him on Facebook or anything, but I did find a thing that said that he was living in Vermont and he's on a sex offender registry. So I go and look at that and I'm like, oh no, that's definitely him. And wouldn't you know, the charges or whatever on there said something about things having to do with a minor or whatever, and I was like, you know, so there is someone.
How did that make you feel?
I don't know that it did. It was more of an informational exercise, I guess. But like, I think it's why this kind of thing is a problem in the world, right? I mean, ignoring the fact that like Greek culture used to do stuff, you know, between men and boys all the time, and that was considered completely normal and typical. But like, our society obviously doesn't like it. So, if your brain works that way, you can't just decide it doesn't, right? I mean, you know, I don't find men attractive, okay? I don't find men sexually alluring in any way, shape, or form, okay? So the whole being gay thing is just not gonna work. But like, what do you do? You know, what could you do? So like, this gets back to exactly why being alive sucks, because like my life will never be good. I imagine there's like a multitude of years of jail time for this crap. So like my whole thing in life is to be useful and help people. That's all I've ever tried to do, you know. I've remodeled people's kitchens, bathrooms, I've helped people with stuff all the time, and yet, you know, I've had this thing hanging over my head the entire time. So it doesn't matter how nice you are or whatever, like, I always knew that if anyone found out, they'd hate me, right? And then like, I just don't know how to explain it.
It sounds like you're trying to help, but simultaneously struggling with this attraction.
Well, wouldn't you? I mean, what do you do? Like the one interest that your body has, let's say, no one will accept, right? I can understand why people try and find other people and make groups where they talk about this kind of stuff, because it's how else can they get any kind of support? And by support, I don't necessarily even mean that they're trying to harm anybody, right? But like, I never did that. So, not saying I didn't find information online, but I didn't like talk to anyone.
Never therapy or.
What kind of therapy could you do? Again, every time anyone talks about therapy for this sort of stuff, all it sounds like is, hey, I want to be put on a list.
Yeah.
I want the police to be watching me all the time, or whatever. That's what it sounds like. Okay? Okay. So when you're a kid, I don't know the sexual attraction as much of a thing. Okay? Then, and I've known people, I've heard stories from people who have said that, you know, stuff happened when they were a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't tell anybody, and they seem to be basically fine. I also know people who did tell somebody, and as far as I can tell, the therapy they went through did more damage than whatever they did prior to that.
Okay.
Right? So, there's a couple different things that I think are weird, because like, you know, the probably what, a minute ever of me fondling him, and their whole family hates my guts as far as I know. Certainly I've heard, you know, whatever his mom wrote down. And she makes it sound like I wanted to ruin his life or something, which is not true. And that's the worst thing, is I absolutely care about this kid, you know? Like, I don't want anything bad for him or whatever, like, from the perspective that my brain was in at the time. I'll explain the consequence thing in a second, but the perspective my brain was in at the time, he was like repeatedly asking for something that I knew I shouldn't do, right? And I finally gave in. But the consequence part of that is I had no idea, and I'm still not sure what the consequences are for that, right? People say, oh, it's bad, you shouldn't do these things.
Mm-hmm.
But no one says, oh, this is a Class A felony that is probably 3 to 5 years in jail or prison or whatever. No one says that. No one talks about this stuff because they don't want kids to hear any of it. They don't want, because then kids might start asking questions. They don't want, none of this gets talked about, right? Even in TV shows and stuff and everything, they're vague about all of it, which is why I had no idea how bad it was, right? This is the problem. At least for me, it's the problem. I know you shouldn't murder people because, then they're not alive anymore. They can't do anything for the rest of their life, which obviously is a bad thing to do to somebody. But to do something that someone's asking you to do, right? And I know there's the whole, everyone's going to talk about, a child's too young to consent or whatever. But it's not like I've ever had anal sex with anyone or anything like that. That's never happened in my life either. So, I don't know.
You Garrett several times. From what I'm understanding, you're telling me is that, he initiated the contact.
Mm.
Was there another kid?
Yeah.
Who would that be?
You just want me to list everyone, huh? Part of me just doesn't want to mention anybody else.
Was it the age of the kid?
I don't know, probably around the same age. Like, that's what sucks, is I just love to tell my whole story, but I'm terrified of how long it'll. I hate jail. I'm sure I'll hate prison. I hate not being useful, and I know I spent two and a half weeks just sitting in one room, right, eating really terrible food with nothing to do. Literally, there was a book in the room. I read it twice. I don't know if you ever read Great Expectations, but it's not an easy read. It was boring as hell being there for that long. All the conversations you hear from all the other people that are there, awful. Like, they talk about stuff like I can't believe people have lives like that. And they think this stuff's all normal. They talk about, oh, I've been in here so many times and all that crap. If I'd known any of that, if I'd had any of that experience, and any kid ever did or said anything that indicated they wanted me to do anything with them, I would have not done anything. That's the point I was trying to make earlier. It wouldn't have mattered. I absolutely hate it. But instead, you have to get found out before you have any idea what the actual consequences are. And by then it's too late. There's nothing you can do. You can't go back in time. You can't you erase anything. You can't undo stuff. And I don't see how jail time helps someone with my problem either. You know what I mean? Like, limitations, I can totally understand. Like psychiatric help or psychological help or whatever, sure, I get that. Like programs and things, I get that. But here's the thing, I have no idea if any of that is even an option. Like, the only thing I know about that I could probably, well, that I can definitely do is jail time or prison time for who knows how long, right? But like, what's the point? I don't see what the point is, because all it'll do is mean that I'm in jail, which the world is safe now because I can't do anything, but I don't want to do anything anyway, right? Like, that part's been taken care of as far as I'm concerned. Like, I have no desire to do anything. I have not had any desire to do anything with any kid whatsoever. I'm terrified of anything like that. It just scares the crap out of me, and I'm completely against it. And like, if I even have thoughts along those lines, all I do is get mad at myself for essentially trying to betray me again, right? Like, it's garbage. I hate it. And I wish I could explain this stuff to any of these families. But I can't, because the moment that anyone comes forward, the very first thing that happens is you're not allowed to contact that family, you're not allowed to contact that kid, you're not allowed to talk to anyone about anything, you can't have anyone you know contact them. So, okay, suddenly, I mean, it just seems so unfair, right? I'm not saying what I did was fair. What I'm saying is, I can't explain anything, I can't.
But it sounds like you're explaining it right now.
I'm explaining it to you, you're never going to tell them.
Well, this is your statement. This is a reported
Right.
statement as well.
Yeah,
I think what
which-
I'm curious about, if you could talk to these families, what would you want to tell them? What would you want them to know?
I wish it never happened. I wish I'd never done anything. I wish their kids weren't curious enough to ask questions or whatever, right? Like, it's like that kid I was talking about that said that he'd gotten an erection in church. Like, that was a totally innocent statement, right?
Mm-hmm.
But until a kid had shown not just interest but initiative or whatever, right? I'm sure it was completely accidental. I'm sure that what started, he didn't do on purpose. I'm sure he just noticed it and just, because when he grabbed my arm, because he sat next to me and my arm was just over here or whatever, and he pulled it around him, which is the thing that he had done before, but at some point, I'm sure that my hand hit something and he liked that. So then he tried to keep that going, right? I didn't realize immediately that had even occurred. That kind of thing, I mean, it comes from a place of innocence, right? And he even said in his statement that it was comforting. I don't know where he got the word comforting. I never said that to him, right? So I'm not putting words in his mouth. I never told him to tell anyone anything like that or anything, I've never threatened any kid, right? Like, the most I've ever done is asked him not to tell anyone because I'd get in trouble. I never even said because they'd get in trouble, right? Because that's another thing you'll hear from like stories or whatever is they didn't say anything because people threatened their life or said they'd kill their family or whatever. I've never done anything like that either. So, I mean, it's weird because like everyone, I don't know about now, but everyone that knows me prior to this would say that I'm like a really nice guy. I'm helpful, I'm nice, I'm, a good person. And other than this one thing, I am, right? But what does that matter? The whole world thinks I'm garbage. I've got my brother's pissed, my mom's sad, and I've got what? two friends that have been supportive, right? And I'm sure they just all believe that I haven't done anything. But like I said, I can't change any of it, and I can't fix it.
It sounds like you took steps to try to better understand this, or that you would have sought help if help was more available.
Yeah, if you felt like you weren't imagine like a hotline for, I don't know, bank robberies or something,
Mhm.
right? Where they're like, if anyone has any tips, please come forward, right? The only people who would do that are people who didn't rob the bank.
Yeah.
That's exactly what this is like, okay? Every time you see anything talking about a hotline or whatever, where people, oh, people like this need help. Sure, I agree. Come forward. Hell no, I robbed the bank, right?
Yeah. You feel like no matter what you do, you're just incriminating
Yeah,
yourself. You're going to end up in trouble.
I was born broken.
Yeah.
That's what I feel like. My mom doesn't know about any of this. My brother doesn't know any about this. My sister doesn't. I've never been in, and here's the thing. Then you get put in jail, right? You still can't tell your mom because it's incriminating. Everything's being recorded. Don't talk to anybody about anything, right? So my brother has no idea, my mom has no idea, my sister has no idea. It's cost me, I don't know, $75,000 so far. And like, my life's still screwed, right? There's nothing,
So you said something about how you knew you were different at like the age 12.
12 or 13, yeah, probably.
Sure. So, and you said that the first time you remember anything happening was like 2018-ish, right? Am I correct in that?
Yeah.
So what's different about that period of time as opposed to after 2018? Like what changed?
I don't know. Well, those incidents hadn't occurred prior to that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So like how are you able to kind of maintain, I don't know, I'm trying to think of
Like I
picture.
said,
Like,
I was not hunting children, okay? I wasn't like,
right.
I see some kid, so okay, think of it like child abductions, okay? You know how they talk about, there's that lady whose son was abducted, raped, and killed, who goes around the nation telling everyone that they're being crazy and helicopter parents and they need to stop. That lady is saying that because statistics are on her side, okay? What happened to her son is like incredibly rare, right? Almost all child abductions are done by a family member or whatever, right? The mentality that there's people out there who are hunting kids to have their way with them or whatever is essentially ludicrous. Like, it's very, 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 very rare. Including me. I've never done that, right? I've never seen a kid and gone, I'm going to get to know that kid somehow. That's never occurred, okay? I got to know all these people, predominantly people I knew at church or whatever, but essentially I got to know all these people, and through that I got to know the kids in those families, and it was all very natural and above board or whatever, right? It was all harmless. Everything was totally harmless. Until, like, the situation where he initiated something, right? Prior to that, like I said, I wasn't hunting kids down or anything, right? I'm not sneaking into people's houses at night and doing stuff or whatever. That's not how anything's ever occurred. So,
So kind of what you're saying is that the I guess it just never presented itself.
right.
Okay.
It's easy to not rob banks when there are no banks.
Fair.
Like, I'm not,
were you a member of the church?
My whole life.
Of this specific Redmond church?
No, like 2010 or something, 9 or 10, I don't know. It was September, I think, of whatever year when I moved in.
When you moved into what?
The house that I live in.
Oh, you've been there for a while.
Yeah, I've been there since then.
So have you been involved in, I imagine you've been involved in the church in other aspects other than just going to...
The first way I got involved, like, I found out that they did activity stuff on Wednesdays. It used to be Wednesdays and they changed it to Tuesdays, but anyway, on Wednesdays. And I didn't have a life. I had my job and then I had nothing else. So I started going to the church just to see what was going on. And one of the first times I even went there, there's this guy, he moved away, but I was just in the gym and I was chatting with this lady, I don't remember who it was, right? But some woman that was there. And she said, well, I don't know what she said. I was talking to her, we were just chatting, because I'm sure she brought a kid or something and then she was just waiting around for stuff to be over. And this guy comes into the gym, this guy named Tim, and he comes over and says, hey, can you help me out? And he said, the other adult leader for the 11-year-old scouts didn't show up. And I said, oh, okay. And he said, can you just, you don't have to do anything, just be there while we're doing this lesson stuff or whatever, because they have this thing in Scouts called 2 Deep Leadership. And I said, sure, and I understand the concept of that. So I went to help him out. And it turns out that they were doing lashing, which is, putting logs together essentially with rope, right? And it turns out this guy didn't know how to teach that, because he'd never done it before. And I was in Scouts. I had everything in Scouts except being an Eagle Scout. And I love teaching people stuff, especially hands-on stuff, right? So I ended up teaching there were only 2 kids there anyway, and one of them was his son. It was hilarious. It was Tyler and Taylor, I remember. But, and so I ended up teaching them this stuff, and then I ended up helping out, like every single week, I'd help one group of people or another, because they would divide stuff up based on age group and everything, right? And I did that for years. Right, I was there helping out. I did a lot of photography. I would take pictures of all the activities that were going on and everything was totally fine. Nothing happened forever, right? And it wasn't until, like, kids that I'd known from when they were really young, such right, where, because like those kids, those particular kids, those 2 11-year-olds, like one of them's, I think he's out of the Marines now. Like he's, I don't know how old he is at this point, but he's 20 something, right? And nothing ever happened with him, nothing ever happened with his family, nothing ever happened with either of those families, like, because I wasn't that close with them, right? Like the thing that led to all this was first being so close with these families that their kids were so comfortable with me that they'd either sit on my lap or like sit with me all the time. Like that was common. And then
So you mentioned like the photography, like you used to take pictures of like the group stuff. So is that something that someone asked you to start doing, or did you just...
No, it was just a hobby of mine, but I was putting pictures on the Word Facebook page all the time. Right.
On the what? Sorry.
Oh, sorry. You don't know much about the church, do you?
Sorry.
Okay, you know what a congregation is?
Sure, yes.
Okay, we call that a ward.
Okay.
So there's the church is divided into areas.
Okay.
I think one area in the United States is like the western half of the country, so areas are very big.
Okay.
And then each area is divided into stakes, and each stake, S-T-A-K-E, and each stake is divided into wards. And around here, we just recently expanded the stake, like the last couple of years or whatever, because so many people moved out of the area that they try to keep around 300 active members in each ward, and then they try to keep stake, divided up into however many wards. And what happened is so many people moved away out of the Redmond and Kirkland area that they combined both stakes.
Okay.
So now we have this stake that goes basically from, I don't know, Carnation all the way over to Lake Washington,
Okay.
which used to stop like in Redmond.
Okay.
from Carnation to Redmond, and then on the other side of Redmond up the hill and over to Lake Washington and stuff. But anyway, so and the building where I attend church is called the Stake Center. So there's church buildings and then there's big church buildings, and that's what that one is.
So the Redmond one's like a bigger congregation.
It's got like a full size basketball court instead of one that's like half the size and stuff. But anyway, so like, there'd be stake activities there and everything, and I've helped out with stuff like that. This thing here is from Built on the Rock. I didn't do anything with any kid in this, ever, right? I knew a lot of them. I never touched any of them. I've answered questions for a few of them, like, cause it's not very common, but every now and then, usually it's like teenagers and stuff, they'd ask some questions that were getting into the sort of sexual related areas, but it was always really benign stuff, right? Like none of that was.
So like teenagers would come to you asking like questions about what, like sexuality? What do you mean by that?
None of it was anything big, right? It was all just, but like, that was the extent with kids like that. That was the extent of anything that ever occurred. I'm not saying that I've never talked about anything like one day there were these two kids. I had to explain what the word flaccid meant, and I was like.
Like what age do you mean when we say two kids?
They were probably 13, probably 14 or 15 or something.
Right.
But
how does that conversation go? Like, who brings that up?
It was because there was you know what airheads are?
Like the candy?
Yes.
Yes.
So, I think I was the one that used the word flaccid, but I said that because it was, if you hold, like, if they're not cold, and you grab one, pick it up, it'll just droop, right? And I think I had mentioned that the thing that, something about it being flaccid or whatever, and they both gave me this look, and they were like, what does flaccid mean? And I was like, how do I explain this without mentioning male genitalia? So I just did, right? I was like, all right, you know how, like, a guy's penis can either be hard or it can be flaccid. And they went, oh, like that, right?
Okay.
It wasn't a sexual conversation. But
sure.
Someone could say, if someone wanted to look at that in a bad light, they would say, oh, that's grooming, which it wasn't. But
so you like more education?
Yes.
Okay.
I love to teach people stuff all the time, and I think that also is part of my problem, right? At least when it comes to kids that are younger, because if a kid is young enough and curious enough and asks these questions, like, I hate lying about stuff, I still remember when I was really young and we were at some cousin's house or whatever down in California, and my parents were in the kitchen. We had spent the night at their house, and the next morning my parents were talking about serial killers. There was some serial killer that was on the news, whatever was going on. And this cousin of mine comes in the room, and he's years younger than me. I don't know how old I was at the time. I was probably like 13 or something, but this kid was probably 9 or younger. And he said, what's a serial killer? And my dad goes, oh, it's when someone sneaks into your house and eats all your cereal, right? I don't make crap up like that to explain things to kids.
Sure.
My dad was a goofball, I guess. But but I guess the way that I work, not like I said, this is never it was never a goal. It was never intentional, right? It was never like I wanted to guide a conversation someplace to make them more and more curious or something. But I think it can happen, right? You answer one question, that leads to another question, because there's more stuff they don't know about. And next thing you know, they want to know, well, how does that work? How does this work?
Kids are curious. They ask a lot of questions.
Unfortunately. Boy, handcuffs sure do a number on your hands. See that? I think that's what that's from. Anyway, so one kid just flat out in the middle of nowhere, I don't even remember how that conversation went, but he knew what sperm was. I'm like, he was 6. It's like, how do you know what sperm is? He said, my mom told me. I mean, I don't know that I would explain that to a 6-year-old, you know? That's just weird. But
So you said it happened with like 6 or 8 kids. Did
Yeah,
all of the touching incidents, did they all happen inside the church?
no.
Okay, well, where else would it happen?
Just other people I know. Like at their house or whatever.
You're explaining that sometimes this would be initiated by the kid. Is that similar for all of these kids, that it's sort of like whatever the conversation steered itself that way, or they would be curious about something or even physically grab your hands? Is that what occurred every single time with these 6 to 8 kids?
I'd say as time progressed, no. But I mean, no one had ever said anything, right? Like the right? It was what? It was like at least, I think probably, well, let's see, 18, 19, 20, 5 years before he told anybody anything, right? And then, it was, as far as I can tell, he didn't want to tell anyone anything. People started asking him and he felt guilty about not talking about it, right? So, we're not talking about like, again, I'm not threatening these kids, okay? I've never threatened any of these kids. They're not.
I think I understand what you're saying. You're saying that you don't mean any kind of harm against anybody. You're not out there trying to seek or trying to hurt anybody.
Right. And I'm also not like a violent person. I'm not ignoring this particular thing, I'm not a dangerous person, and from, a certain perspective, even with that, I'm not a dangerous person, because, like, I'd never want to hurt a kid.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But, like, that's not how anyone else explains it. Because, again, they don't know the other perspective of this at all. Certainly they don't understand it, but they don't want to understand it, right? Mom wrote something that they read in court, when I was there during my arraignment, and it was awful. And the stuff she wrote, first of all, is a bunch of just nonsense. Like, a lot of what she wrote is completely lies, but she doesn't know that. They're all assumptions, right? Yeah. And that's what sucks, is like, especially when you're talking about people who are, it's so hilarious, from a Christian perspective or whatever, right?
Yeah. This
whole thing about loving your enemies and being Christ-like and all that stuff, and the very first thing everyone does is say, something happened to my kid, therefore you are evil and you were always out to get us and you had these plans or whatever, and that's just not true, right? But like, okay, so you're in this room, this kid wraps your hand around them, and you realize that they're rubbing their crotch with the back of your knuckles, basically. Wouldn't be the back, whatever, I don't know how to, with this part of your hand, and you can't say out loud for everyone to hear that this kid is basically pleasuring themselves using your hand, because that makes you look bad. You can't let anyone know about it, because that makes you look bad. So then you have to be clandestine about it to try to get the kid to stop doing it, right? And you can't just yank your hand away, because then he might say something. Like, it's all fraught with peril, every single thing, right?
Yeah.
And then, when that sort of thing has happened enough, and like, there's the temptation part of it too. Like, if an opportunity presents itself and What's to stop you from acting on it, right?
When
And
it's
again,
right there.
And again, let's say you're attracted to, oh, I don't know, boys instead of women, right? If you're attracted to women, and of course the world has gotten very different in recent years anyway, because now they're like, oh, you should ask for permission for every single thing. I was just watching the Jurassic World movie, and Jeff Goldblum says to Laura Dern's character, oh, can I touch your blouse? Like this little thing that's up here, right? It's like, that would never have been in a movie 5 years before.
Mm-hmm.
They would never have said that, right? Men were always like, it's the guy who took the chances that he could offend this girl that would get the girl, because whatever the whole, and now the whole world has gone absolutely nuts. But the thing is, you already know that what appeals to you, no one will ever say is okay. Okay, so you don't tell anyone. You try and just put it away and never deal with it or whatever. But that never works. Of course it doesn't. So then the only thing that's going to stop anything from occurring would be deterrence. And like I said, I didn't know what the deterrents were. Okay? You know when I found out what the deterrents were? When I talked to a public defender after I was arrested the second time. So we're saying, what, March something? 15th or whatever? 16th? I don't know when it was. That's a hell of a long time to have my brain with the way that it works and not have any idea that touching a kid once for 2 seconds could put you in jail for 3 to 5 years.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Where do you find that crap?
Yeah.
How does anyone know about that? Okay, and then people say, well, how can this thing possibly happen? That's exactly how this thing can possibly happen. Because again, I'm not seeking out kids to try and hurt them. I'm not trying to do anything to anybody. But like, where's you have all these things, all these mechanisms in life to prevent you from doing things. Like pain prevents you from hurting yourself. Or fear prevents you from driving 130 miles an hour down the road, right? There's all kinds of things, like, fear of heights will keep people from climbing too high in a tree, whatever. But what the hell do you do with this?
Yeah.
Which actually leads me to the next question. So, like, for that time period, right,
Mhm.
we're kind of like trying to suppress those feelings, I guess, for lack.
You mean successfully or not successfully?
Successfully, like through that
Yeah.
that time period where
Right.
you said that nothing happened.
Yeah.
So was there like, did you ever go online and like explore just images of
Yes.
unclothed children, just to kind of
That'll-
alleviate that?
Let me explain how that happened, which stuff's depressing anyway, but so when I was in high school, there was a guy that I went to high school with who, I don't remember why, but I went over to his house after school one day, and he lived like within walking distance. And we're just at the house, and they had a computer, and they had access to the internet or whatever, and he said, hey, you want to see something weird? And it was just me and him at home, no one else, right? And I don't know, I was probably like 16 at the time, or probably 16. I was either 16 or 17, but it was one, whatever. And so he goes and shows me this website, which was, and I still remember the name. I don't know what the name of the site was, but the page was for someone who referred to himself as Dr. Denny, right? Okay. And he was making fun of this webpage because his mom was dating a guy whose name was Denny. And I'm sure it wasn't the same person, because, what are the chances that he finds one website and it just happens to be the same website of a guy that he knows or whatever. But that guy considered himself a NAMBLA member, right? I don't know if you ever heard of NAMBLA.
Mm-hmm.
So this is apparently the North American Man-Boy Love Association. Okay. It was the very first time that, because by that point, okay, so when I was like in 8th grade or probably 8th grade, there was this kid that I knew at school that came over to my house because he was curious about computers, interested in learning about computers and stuff. And he Like, nothing ever happened with him, but I remember, you know, he's sitting on my bed, I'm sitting on at my computer, right, like across the room, and I remember having thoughts like, this kid is very cute, right? So he's like a year younger than me, but he was a lot smaller. Like, he was, you know, he still hadn't like gone through any kind of a growth spurt or anything like that. And I don't know, just how he looked appealed to me, right?
Sure.
And all I really remember from the entire day was him telling me that he had chronic ulcers all the time, which I thought was really weird for someone who was like 11 or 12 or whatever, however old he was. But anyway, so like, you go from that to, I go to high school, and then I'm not really around people that are like that young, because I'm in high school, right? And then, I mean, I'd see people, obviously, like, you know, just through the course of whatever is going on in my life, but like,
But you're telling a story about Dr. Denny or something. I
yeah,
guess you
yeah,
kind of
yeah.
lost me. So like,
right.
what
Well,
was
so
that?
anyway, so when I'm 16, or however, you know, probably 16, and I see this thing, and I find out that there's like people out there who apparently are wired the same way I am. I don't know that I'm thinking in terms of being wired at all at this point, but you know, like their brain, they think the same things that I do, that these kids are, you know, cute. And again, you know, they talk about this all the time. They never want to harm anybody. They're never trying to. They don't ever want to. They don't want to initiate anything that a kid's not interested in, etc. All this stuff, right? Which, yay, that's great. But like, of course, there's plenty of people in the world who would look at any of that and say, this is the most evil thing I've ever seen in my life. But I mean, how can you look at it that way, but also know that that's what your brain thinks of too?
So like, what were you exposed to in that? Like, I guess I remember like.
Well, that was
like,
nothing.
Did he show you like pictures of something?
There were pictures, but they weren't like unclothed or anything like that. They were just, you know, photographs of kids that looked cute.
Okay.
And then one picture of a kid flipping off the camera for some reason. That's the only picture I actually remember that was there,
okay,
that I can describe at all. But like, it wasn't anything illegal, because you can't, no one's going to go out there and put up just a web page talking about this stuff and put, you know, child porn on it. That's not going to work.
Sure. So how did you get to the point where you started looking at like the unclothed pictures?
I don't know. I have really good skills with computers. So,
okay,
you know, it's not that hard to find whatever. I don't know how it started. I really don't.
Did it start like after that first exposure?
Oh, it was definitely after that.
Okay.
It was probably not until, I don't know, 99, 2000, somewhere around there.
Okay.
Maybe even later. I can't be sure. Because like, obviously the internet is not.
Yeah.
The internet provides ridiculous amounts of access to all sorts of things that
yes,
people may or may not want to ever see.
Sure. So when's the last time you looked at something like that?
Last time I looked at anything like that was definitely like before I got arrested in December.
Okay. So nothing since
Nope.
your arrest?
Nothing at all.
Okay.
Like I haven't seen any pornography of any kind. I'm not interested in it. Because now I know what it leads to.
Sure. Great.
But like I said, I didn't know that before. And everyone's going to say, well, not knowing the punishment is no defense. But, I mean, it's a hell of a deterrent, or not deterrent.
Well, so now that you know, like, what do you think the consequences should be?
I can understand me not being allowed to be around kids. I can totally understand that. I have no idea how to atone for what I've done, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, that's the thing. What's really funny, because I mean, I'd love to talk to these families and stuff. I'd love to talk to these kids and explain to them that everything that happened should never have happened. They shouldn't feel guilty about it, but they also shouldn't try to Because the thing I don't want to happen is for any of these kids to go forward in their life and then do anything like what I've done, right? But they've got an excuse that I never did. There was no adult that like did anything to me that I can ever remember, right? So, but like, I don't see how being in jail with a bunch of people who basically just talk all day about how to break the law is going to help me, right? I don't understand. I've heard how the prosecutors talk. They're hilarious. You know.
What do you mean?
Oh, they'll be like, oh, this person's in danger of doing this again. Not true. They're definitely going to seek out more kids. Not true. They're going to harm these families. Not true. Right? I don't want to harm anyone.
So do you think that's like just a generalization? Like, are you saying that you
Okay.
yourself don't want to do those things, but are you saying like everyone else, like that's not how everyone thinks, or is that?
I don't know how everyone else thinks. I'm not talking about everyone else. I'm saying me harming a child, last thing I'd ever want to do, right?
Gotcha. Okay.
Yes, I was not in a position to view this stuff as harming a child. I am now, but I wasn't before, right? Because again, I didn't get the consequences of it. I'd never heard any kid talk about how they were, that they didn't like it, right? That they didn't want things to happen.
So I think what you're then saying is that if the kids could give consent, they were giving consent to all the action.
Yes.
Okay.
But, you know, again, that legally doesn't matter at all.
But I hear what you're saying is that that's part of your intent that was never to harm anybody, because the way that you saw it then was that you were kind of engaging them in their own curiosity.
Right.
Whether that was sexual or educational.
Mm-hmm. And there's plenty of educational stuff I've done with kids for years and years and years, right? Like helping out with the Scouts, you know, Cub Scouts, Boy Scouts, other youth activity stuff at church, you know, just whatever. Like there's, and I love that stuff. I mean, one of the funnest things was a woodworking project that I found someone had made a design for something that they were selling on Etsy or whatever, but it was a great opportunity for the Cub Scouts to complete a project that they were required to do for Scouts that I had all the tools and stuff available, right? So basically these kids would make a display stand for a Pinewood Derby car that would hold a photograph, and you know, you could hang some medals on it or whatever, and it had like a shelf at the top so the thing hangs on the wall. And all the kids I did that stuff with loved it, you know, well, except Ethan. Ethan didn't seem to care, but the rest of the kids loved it, right? But like, again, that's all purely educational stuff, all perfectly healthy, wonderful, great stuff, right? None of that was ever anything creepy or inappropriate. And that's another thing I wonder, because like, you know, I was doing all this stuff, helping out. I was around kids all the time. I was a primary teacher, right? Which means, so primary is like 3 to 11-year-old kids for their Sunday school classes, right? So like your sacrament meeting, which is the first thing you do, and then it used to be 2 hours after that. So you'd have, so the primary kids would either have, they divide them in half, so you'd have junior primary and senior primary, and you either have class for an hour and then you'd have sharing time for an hour, or you'd do it the other way around, depending on which age group you were in. And sharing time was a bunch of, you know, like all the junior primary kids or all the senior primary kids together in a room.
Okay.
Singing, doing, you know, games or whatever, and there's lessons that they talk about. There's always some subject, you know, that would be like the topic for the day or whatever. But in class, the classes all get divided up into smaller groups. So like about the largest classes I ever saw with that was like 9 kids or something, right? And when I was a primary teacher, nothing was ever happening, right?
Okay.
I wasn't doing anything with anyone. I don't know if it's because I was around kids all the time, and it never, how do I explain this? I was around kids all the time, but like, nothing ever went further than just all the regular, primary stuff, right? Because, I don't know, I just wonder if that played into it at all, because what happened was, the ward, there's what's called a ward split, where so many families move into an area that the ward ends up with so many people attending that it gets hard to like fit everyone in at once. So then they split the ward into multiple wards, and then there's the opposite where they get rid of a ward, right? And what they did, was it 2018, 2017? I don't remember when it was. At some point, they changed things, and they like combined some stuff, and when they did that, the ward boundaries changed, and when that happened, a lot of people's callings went away, right? And so I was no longer a primary teacher, and so like the times that I was around all these kids was not, it wasn't just like every week, it was like much more occasional.
Okay.
And I don't know if that partially led to stuff, because the kids that I knew when they did see me were more interested in engaging with me than when they saw me regularly, or you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know. I just wonder if that played into it at all.
So when you were the primary teacher, were you the only adult
Nope.
in the room?
Nope.
Okay.
Like sharing time, there's a bunch of adults in the room, and when you're doing class, there's always two. That's just a policy the church has, which, is intended to prevent anything from ever occurring, regardless of the circumstances or whatever, which is great, because like things didn't occur, right?
Did you see a lot of less kids then from the time that you were a primary teacher to the time that you stopped?
Well,
Does that mean that they had a lot less interactions with children?
Yeah, I mean, certainly less frequent, less routine interactions with kids. It was one of those kids when he was in Sunbeams, so he was 3. I was his primary teacher for like, I don't know, a while. Probably 2 months or something. I know it was at the end of a year. And it was just because I was basically substituting, but it was because whoever the other teacher was like someone had moved or something, right? So they needed someone to fill in. So I was there around him all the time, and nothing ever happened. That was all very innocent stuff,
So this may be a tough question, but do you think maybe, did you just find yourself like attracted to more older boys? Like, what age range would you say?
I wouldn't say it's that. I mean, well, when you say older, you're talking what?
I mean, like, I guess like 8, 9.
It wasn't 8 or 9. He is now.
Right. I'm just trying to gauge, like, what.
I don't know.
Where you fall in that.
I mean, I would generally say prepubescent, but I don't know. I mean, that's the thing. Attraction sucks. At least it does for me. Like, for everyone else it's normal, but for me, well, not everyone else, but for most people it's pretty normal.
When you found yourself looking at things online, is that what you were looking for, is images or videos of prepubescent, or?
You don't necessarily get to decide what you're looking for online, right? Because it's not like this stuff is fully indexed and searchable or whatever.
Sure.
Right? Any search engine that you go to, if you type in all kinds of stuff, nothing comes up, because all that stuff is filtered out, which makes perfect sense to me. But like, you look for boys or whatever, you're gonna find you'll find stuff, but it's more like what interests you. I don't know. It's hard to explain. I suppose if I use an analogy of like a straight guy looking for hot women, right?
Mhm.
You go and type hot women or whatever, you search for that. You have no idea what's going to come up. But the pictures that you like will catch your attention.
Mhm.
It's exactly like that, right?
That's what I'm asking. So what in all those images or whatever you're viewing is what enticed you?
I don't know, stuff that's not appropriate, I'll tell you that. Like, I mean, you know, like I said, I've dealt with this basically forever. So, I mean, I used to only see stuff like, you know, boys in swimsuits or, because like that stuff's legal, right? Anyone can look at that. They're just pictures. Clothing companies, you know, they'll have advertising campaigns or they'll have pictures on their websites or whatever, right? All that kind of stuff. And I mean, I wished I'd never looked at anything. You know, maybe it never would have gone anywhere. But I don't know.
Did you save a lot of this stuff? Like,
Oh yeah.
to go back and look at at a later time?
Yeah.
Like, how much would you say you have?
I have no idea. How much do I have?
Yeah. Like
None.
saved. What's that?
None.
None saved?
Well, anything that I ever had, at one point or another, either was on a computer that, you know, where the hard drive died or whatever,
Sure.
or I'll put it this way. In December, I got arrested. Then I got out because I got out on bail.
Mhm.
And the very first thing I did when I got home was delete every single thing that I'd ever had. Like, no matter what it was, right? Anything I could find.
What about your cell phone?
They took my cell phone.
I'm sorry, who? I don't know.
The police, in December, took my phone.
Okay, gotcha.
So, now, there wasn't any pornography on it, I can tell you that.
Okay.
But, you know, I used to routinely take pictures of kids that I thought looked nice. Not that I was planning on doing anything with them, but just something to look at, you know.
Are we talking clothed children? Or
Oh yeah, no, totally clothed. Like nothing, as far as I know, nothing that is actually illegal, right?
Okay.
Like you know, I don't know if there's like certain rules about privacy stuff that have to do with like if someone doesn't know they're being photographed or whatever, but.
Yes, there are rules against that.
Well, I know there's rules not taking pictures of people in bathrooms and stuff, but I'm not talking about that.
Okay, so maybe misunderstanding. So have you ever taken photos of like children unclothed?
No,
Okay. That's what I meant. Mistake.
I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about like kids that I would see. You go to the store, right? And there's some kid that just looks adorable.
Okay, gotcha.
And rather than just try and memorize every single thing you can possibly think of, you know,
Mm-hmm.
you just take a picture and then maybe and you look through these pictures later and it's like this picture's, you know, not as interesting as I thought it could have been. Right?
Okay, so let's say you go to a grocery store and you find a child that you think is cute and you
Mhm.
take a picture of it. Like, what is the purpose of that? What do you do with that photo?
I don't know. Like I'm just a visual person. I mean, with the photography that I was doing when I was at church, for instance, right?
Mhm.
I would take pictures of like everybody that was there, everything that they were doing, right? And part of that was just, it was really neat it's just neat, like this, it just has to do with how my brain works, but it's neat to go through pictures and sort of remember that day, just like to
Sure.
walk through the day. You go through the pictures, I remember, oh, that's right, I talked to this person, we talked about this. It's amazing the stuff that I can recall from images, right?
Mm-hmm.
So none of this is necessarily like sexual, right? It's just I'm a very visual person, I guess. But then, you know, like I've taken pictures of kids in Home Depot or Costco or whatever, but it's not like I've ever sought them out, tried to figure out who they are or anything
Yeah.
like that. It's
I'm not saying that you do that, I'm just
Yeah,
questioning
but
what you
like,
do with the photographs later on.
Just kept them.
Do you ever look at them again?
Yeah, but then
Okay.
like I said,
And then
like
what
there's
happens?
plenty of, usually nothing. Like almost always, you go through and eventually, a photo you took, you realize this photo's not actually that, it's not that great or whatever.
Okay,
So
sure.
then you end up deleting stuff or whatever, right? But like, I'm also the kind of person that just holds on to everything, so I could have just a ton of stuff or whatever. I don't know. But like I said, I deleted everything, so I wasn't keeping any of that crap after I got arrested, because I didn't want. At the time when it was one case, and I didn't know if anything else would get out or whatever, I actually had an inkling of hope. I don't anymore. I have no hope at all. I feel so despondent right now, I can't even explain. But, because like being arrested one time, being in jail for just over 24 hours was enough to make me never want to do anything ever again. But could I ever convince a judge that? No. Could I ever convince a prosecutor that? No. Like there's.
So there were some pictures on the wall in your house, like of some children.
Mm-hmm.
Who are those kids?
Depends on which pictures.
Downstairs in the living room.
The dance ones?
Yes.
Okay. So a friend of mine, who I haven't seen in years, owns a dance studio.
Okay.
And I do photography. I mean, real photography. Like I've got
Mhm.
strobes, I've got backdrops, I had a camera till the police took it. But anyway, I've done all kinds of professional photography for all sorts of people, right? In fact, I've got 2 people right now that are really pissed with me because they don't have their wedding photos. But I don't have their wedding photos because the police took them. So I'd love to right that wrong, but I can't, because I'm sure that no one's going to give me access to that crap. But anyway, so my friend's dance studio was going to have it's a thing they do right at the end of the school year, but it's the big show, right, where all the kids that have been learning all their dance routines for the year dance. And then afterwards, I was going to do photographs for all the kids, for all the parents who wanted pictures of their kids, who wanted a nice photograph of them in their outfit, or anyway. The whole point was to sell stuff and to make these pictures available for the parents. And so I did group photos of all the kids, like outside, where they were all dressed like the jazz dance kids and all these different age groups. And then but the pictures that you're talking about, they were from beforehand. So like a week before or 2 weeks before or something like that, I met her at her dance studio, and 2 of her kids and her sister with her 2 kids, I don't know how many kids she's got, were there, right, in their outfits, and I took photos of them. So I did the whole thing that I was going to do on the night, so that I had pictures, and that's what those 12 by 18s were, right? They were basically advertisements to say, you can get pictures like this.
Okay, gotcha.
And then, I spent more money on those frames than I made doing those photos, which is the stupidest thing. But I don't know how photography companies make any money. But like people that do school photos and stuff, no clue. But anyway, so those pictures, they're, I had because it was all the different outfits and it was all the stuff that those kids were participating in. So it was like Yeah, I think it's 7 photos. And then, you know, I had all that stuff, and I was like, well, I don't want to just stick them in a stack someplace, and the walls in my house were ridiculously bare at the time, so I just hung them up.
Okay.
Right?
Do you think that's kind of a little bit weird?
Okay, so let's say you're an artist, right?
Sure.
And you paint things. Would you think it's a little bit weird if you put your work on the wall?
No, it's fair.
Okay.
Fair statement.
So, because anytime anyone ever asked, like, why do you have these pictures? I was like, because I took those pictures. Like this, I was doing professional photography for a dance studio.
Makes sense.
Interested in the other ones? Because I have those too. The one with the moon, did you see that?
Mm-hmm.
It's this big, I hope you noticed.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, well that's another one, right? Family I knew, I was at their house one day, and me and the dad of that family, we met because of photography, right? Like,
Okay.
and his son was, 12 or whatever at the time, and I had this idea just pop into my head. It was actually kind of funny, but I had to have him stand on top of I don't know what you'd call it, a cat perch. It's like a scratching post thing with a bunch of platforms on it. I had dragged that over and stuck it underneath a light in their house, because their house had these big ball-shaped white lights, you know? Well, it wasn't even white, it was yellow, but anyway. So I had to have him stand up there, and then I ended up having to pose his hands on it, and then he did all these different facial expressions, and I took probably like 100 pictures, and then went through them all later and found one that I liked how it looked, and then took a photograph of the moon and superimposed them together and everything, and then the stars in the background, I made the whole background just really, really dark and everything, and then created stars. So the whole background of that thing is completely fake. But again, you know, there's another family that I know, nothing ever happened with them either. But like, I mean, a lot of stuff happened with them, but nothing bad. And that kid absolutely adores me, and that's the other thing. Like, all these kids absolutely adore me. Until their parents, or, you know, psychologist or whoever it is that ends up talking to them, convinces them that I'm horrible. Which is also depressing.
Getting back to these 6 or 8 children, that's something that's happened with. Is there an age range you can give me? What was the youngest that you can remember?
Probably 5 or 6.
What's the oldest that you can remember?
I don't know. Maybe 12, maybe. I don't know.
And you said that it started, right?
I think.
Okay. I've asked you, and I do want to know. I understand you're hesitant to tell me, but what are the other names? That's one. There's still 7 more, 5 more.
This is where the problem lies. Because, like, if I knew I wasn't going to spend the rest of my life in jail, I would freely talk about all this crap. But, like, there's no way. You're going to tell me there's no way you can make that happen.
No, there's no way that I can make that happen.
That's the problem.
How about first names?
I don't want to give first names.
There's another perspective here that we haven't talked about. You've told me that you feel like, you know, that you want to help people, you enjoy fixing things, and you don't wish any harm on anybody. But then what I'm left with is that perspective from the parents.
Yeah, I know. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Okay, so some of these parents, and you even kind of mentioned it, mom made all these statements that just didn't seem accurate. And I think that a lot of that has to do with her trying to understand.
She isn't trying to understand. She doesn't want to talk to me.
What occurred to her child.
Yeah, almost nothing, by the way. but yes.
So that attitude of trying to help and trying to fix, I think that that's where I'm at, and that's where I'm stuck with, is I don't know the scope of all this. How many kids out there, you're telling me 6 to 8, or how many families out there are sitting there wondering whether they need to assist their kid? Is there a reason that their kid is coming up to you and asking sexualized questions? Is their kid maybe struggling with the same things that you struggled with when you were around 11 years old? And then on top of that, yes, of course, there's the other perspective where they want to lash out at you and treat you like the bad guy. But I guess that's my question for you about trying to help, trying to fix. I guess, sorry,
Yeah,
that would come to trying to...
Yeah, I get it, but, okay, let's look at the other perspective for a second. What does the law say about all this? The law says, as far as I know, jail time, period, right? Well, how's that gonna help anyone, right? Like, I'm de-incentivized to help out, because all it does is screw me over.
Understood.
Right?
Yeah.
The law doesn't want me to cooperate with this, because if it did, then I don't know. If someone was actually a full-blown child predator and was just going out and trying to find kids to do things to, and that was like their entire, existence, I could understand, okay? But I'm not, but it's like a one-size-fits-all solution to a problem, right? That's my issue.
That you're put in that same box.
Yes. Okay, you get locked up with people. I was locked up with a guy who was 20 years old and had killed somebody. Doesn't even deny that he killed somebody. He just denies the circumstances that they described it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I never want to kill anybody. I don't want to hurt anybody, right? Like, and that's the thing. Like, again, you have to look from the perspective of where this wasn't hurting anybody, what I was doing. Because the kids seem to be rather interested participants, let's say.
Will you tell me
What
did you harm any of their children? Or as you're putting it, were their kids curious with their conversations or sexualized touching?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, did grabs himself all the time.
Okay.
Like all the time. Whenever he's excited, I can't describe how many times I've seen him jumping up and down, squeezing himself down there. Why? I don't know. I mean, I know a lot of kids do. Like it's something in fact, that's also true. Something I hadn't noticed until I was doing photography all the time, right? You take pictures of all these activities and stuff, and you realize in a lot of the photos, you can't use these photos, you can't like put them out for people to see, or at least I didn't feel comfortable putting them out for people to see, because somewhere in the shot, some kid's grabbing themselves. Because, there was all this stuff going on, they're all excited. Well, so, that being the case, I was at their house one day. Nothing had ever occurred prior to this or whatever, but I'm at their house one day, and well, he was doing it again, but there wasn't anyone else around. And I asked him why he was doing that, and he started describing that there was some, the way he was describing it, I didn't even understand the words he was using. He was describing stuff that was like really weird, like, I don't know, using, because, when kids are talking about their genitalia, they usually are very vague. They say things like, it does this, or it whatever, yada yada, that kind of thing. And I tried to, understand what he was talking about, so I started asking a couple questions or whatever, and then he said something to me like, you know, does yours do that or whatever, you know. It ended up being like this conversation where basically he was asking me what I did in the same situation, and I was like, what do you mean, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, I can't remember like specifics. I don't remember exactly how it happened, but eventually he asked me to show him what I was trying to explain. And all I was trying to explain was like, if your wiener's sticking straight out and it's uncomfortable, you can just point it up so it's not sticking straight out. And he wanted me to show him what I meant. And I'm an idiot, so I did. But, you know.
In order to show him that?
Mm.
Was that with your flaccid penis, or?
No, I put my hand under his pants and just showed him like pulling upward, right? That was all it was.
Mm-hmm.
And he like giggled and said that tickled or something.
Mm-hmm.
And that was it.
Okay.
But after that, you know, the same kind of thing. Like, let's see. I don't know when that was either. I mean, how old is he now? 11? I think he's 11. So, yeah, he's probably like, I don't know, 7 or 8 at the time or something. But again, you know, I was just trying to help him out.
So same kind of thing where he initiates some kind of conversation.
Well, after that,
Curiosity, and then
but
what happened after that?
After that, like I assume, you know, that just made him. I don't know if it made him more curious or not.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I don't know.
Did more touching occur after that?
Yeah.
In his home or at church?
Neither. No, it was at some party. And most people had left, and he and I were just sitting there chatting and stuff. And
Same conversation, same type of conversation?
I don't remember how that happened. But like, you know, once you've already done something with the kid, like, and they seem interested or whatever, it's hard to stop yourself, I guess, when they never complained about it or whatever. They never
Mm-hmm.
said that it made them uncomfortable or.
And the door's been opened.
Yeah, exactly.
Did he ever touch you?
Yes.
Can you? How does that happen?
I think he was sitting on my lap and started asking questions because yeah, that was at church. It's that whole thing, you know. What's this?
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, did you say it was at church?
Yeah, that particular thing was.
Was that like similar thing where his hands go down your pants like yours did in his, or different?
Yeah, he said he wanted to feel it.
So what happened?
So I asked him, like, he was trying to squeeze me through my pants.
Mm-hmm.
And then he said, you know, he wanted to like really feel it or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so I let him. But
Where was this at church?
was in one of the rooms. I was sitting in a chair and we were around the corner from, like, you know, people couldn't see us where we were. And it was so brief. I mean, it was like 2 seconds or something. Like the whole interaction, because I was just sitting there and he, like, you know, was wandering around and found me there and then jumped in my lap. But then the actual, like, touching was very, you know, very quick. It wasn't, you know, it wasn't anything.
What did he touch?
My penis.
And is that still on the same sort of like educational piece, or are we beyond that and this is really
He was just
you?
curious. He wanted to see,
Okay.
you know, what it felt like or whatever. It wasn't having him masturbating or anything.
Were you erect?
Yes. I never even explained what that was. Like, you know.
Did he ask?
Did he ask what masturbation was? No.
Yeah, did he ask any questions about that?
I don't know. You're being really vague. What do you mean?
About masturbation?
No. Like, I don't know that he knows what masturbation is. I mean, he probably does now, considering his age. I imagine they talk about it in school. But at that point, he didn't say anything. Like, he didn't say anything like that.
Okay, so how old was he when he touched your penis?
That's probably around the same time. I don't know.
So still around 6?
7 or 8.
7 or 8?
Probably.
Okay. Did this happen more than once?
I don't know. That situation certainly didn't happen again.
So he only touched your penis once?
I don't know.
Does it help? Tell me about like the stage area. I'm not familiar with your church, but is there a stage area in the gymnasium?
Yes.
Okay. Does that ring a bell or help in it at all?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it does.
What happened in the stage area?
Well, I hadn't been around him in a while or whatever, and I didn't know if he had lost interest in anything or if he was still interested in stuff or whatever, so he was looking for his brother. I was helping them look for his brother too. Like, I don't even remember who it was, but one of his brothers was, no one knew where he was, so we were all wandering around trying to find him. And because my brain is stupid, the moment we were out of sight of people or whatever, I tried to see if he was interested again, and he didn't seem like it. So.
How did you see if he was interested or not?
I tried touching him and asking him if he wanted to touch me or whatever, and then I don't know, he didn't seem interested, so then, you know, we just, again, that was like, what, 5 seconds for the whole interaction, and then we just kept trying to find his brother.
Yeah. Did any touching actually occur?
Not really. I mean, not any like pleasuring or whatever, you know.
Okay. But I guess I'm wondering too, is it like similar to what it was before, where either your hand is under his pants or his hand is under your pants?
Yeah.
Did that type of thing occur?
Yeah, but it didn't. Like I said, it was so brief, it didn't go anywhere. It's not like anyone was. It just wasn't much.
Okay. Did your hand go underneath his pants?
Mm-hmm.
Did you touch his penis?
I don't think so.
Okay. Did his hands go underneath your pants at that time?
Mm-hmm.
Did he touch your penis?
He might have, but I mean, I wouldn't say he grabbed it.
Okay. So you could just tell by that interaction that he wasn't interested
Yeah.
in doing more, so it stopped there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then you're thinking, when did this happen? You said that you guys, am I misunderstanding that there was like a pause there, or like what?
That was the last time I ever did anything that had anything with him at all.
Do you remember when that was?
I don't know, it was last year. I don't know when. It was, I don't know, could have been around the summer or earlier. But since then, I haven't tried to do anything, because, he doesn't seem interested. And I'm not going to try and force a kid to do anything that they're not interested in.
So you described it kind of started with a question, really a curiosity about erections in his home, and that led to some touching there. And then touching occurred at church, and it sounds like it occurred more than once. Do you remember how many incidences or moments or split second touching occurred?
Probably just 3 or 4.
3 to 4?
Yeah.
And then how many at his home? Was it just that one time at his home?
I think so.
What made it stop in summer of 2022 or earlier than that? What, because he wasn't interested, he wasn't curious anymore?
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I'm not trying to hurt kids, right? I've never wanted to hurt kids. So if they're curious about something and I indulge their curiosity, that's one thing. But if they show that they're not, because at that point it's like, okay, part of my brain's going, well, this kid's willing to keep a secret because they haven't told anybody, obviously, right? But, but if they suddenly show disinterest or whatever, then obviously I don't want to push things, right? Because you don't want to give them a reason to tell anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Again, this all sounds so stupid in hindsight, but
You're kind of explaining how you're thinking about it then.
mm-hmm.
And this was before you were aware of the serious consequences.
Yes.
And I think what you're telling me is, in your mind, they're curious, you're curious as well. So you'll go down that road with them.
Unfortunately.
What about siblings?
I talked to him once, but I never touched him.
You never.
Not directly, no.
How about indirectly?
I asked him if he ever, if he knew how to make this feel good, and pointed at, a spot, but no, I didn't touch it.
What do you mean by that? Make what feel good?
His penis, obviously.
So you were if he knew how to make his penis feel good?
Yeah.
Okay. And was that the same type of thing where you're seeing if he's curious? Did he bring up a sexualized conversation?
No,
or is that you introducing it?
That was me introducing it.
Okay, because that's a little bit different than what you told me before. Is that why is that? Why is it different than last?
Like I said, what I was talking about before is how things started.
Okay.
Right.
Kind of progressed from there.
Well, when you start realizing that way too many kids are willing to go along with stuff and not tell anybody, I can totally understand why you hear so many guys say things like, every girl's interested or whatever. And it's like, that's not necessarily true, but there's so many girls that are interested that it leads to those kinds of statements.
Okay.
Right?
So you're willing to test the water to see if he was curious?
Yeah, and he didn't seem very curious.
Did you touch him?
What do you mean?
Did you touch his body?
His body? Of course I've touched his body. I used to carry him around when he was a baby.
Okay.
Like, a lot, but...
So let me be more specific. I mean, you're discussing his penis.
Uh-huh.
Did you touch his penis?
No.
Okay. Over the pants or anything like that?
I don't know that I touched his penis. I touched his pants in that area.
Okay.
Just to illustrate what I was talking about.
Okay.
But
do you,
no.
Do you remember where this conversation was?
Yeah, that was at church too.
Do you remember when?
No. I mean, it's probably last year as well.
Anything else happen?
Not that I can remember.
So one of the other, what if I brought up like piano room in his home? Do you remember anything about the piano?
No.
Remember him either sitting on your lap or sitting next to you on the piano bench at his house?
Mm-mm.
You don't remember that?
I don't think he ever did.
Okay. I don't know. That's why I'm asking.
I mean, I can only think of 2 kids in their family that I've even seen sit at the piano.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right? 'Cause I know Jack plays. Plays.
Yeah. So I guess maybe you just answered that. Did you sit at the piano with any?
I've sat next to before, and Jack, I'm sure. But I mean, we're talking over a period of many years.
Sure.
And nothing happened while we were playing piano or whatever.
Okay. What about any other siblings?
No. No.
Nothing?
Not that I can remember.
Okay. Anything at church?
No.
Okay, you can tell. So I did.
And he said something happened? Because
Well,
I find that hard to believe.
Okay, and I don't know. I'm trying to understand it. Was there a conversation that maybe he's getting confused?
I don't remember having a conversation about any of this.
Okay.
Like, at this point, I have no idea, like, what anyone's saying.
Okay.
I don't know if that's the other thing. I don't know if these kids talk to each other. I don't know if they, I mean, obviously they weren't telling their parents anything, but I don't know if they told each other anything.
Sure.
So, I have no idea. I mean, I don't know. What did he say? Because I don't remember anything.
Well, I mean, you're telling me that you don't remember touching him. I would hope that you would remember if you had.
Oh, I'm sure I would.
Okay, so you're telling me that it didn't occur. So I'm just asking, I don't know if maybe there was a conversation similar to other conversations you have with kids, whether that was educational or curiosity question that led down
I
the
don't
road
remember anything like
sexualized.
that ever happened.
And maybe he's getting that confused.
Again, I don't remember ever having a conversation like
Okay. Do you ever remember sitting close to him at church or him sitting in your lap? Is he getting that confused?
I don't think he's ever sat in my lap.
Okay.
And I mean, I've sat next to him at church before,
Mm-hmm.
but I never touched him.
Okay. Do you know why he would say that he had sat in your lap before and that you had touched him at church?
I have no idea, because I'm sure that didn't happen.
Okay. Okay.
That's very confusing.
I think that I'm a little confused then too, because I guess from what you're telling me, like, if had been curious or had questions about body parts, is that something that you would have?
This weird conversation I ever remember having with him, and we were sitting next to each other at church, but I mean, I remember mostly he kept turning around and looking the other way in church, and I kept telling him to sit in his seat and just to sit down and face the front, and he thought it was a game. He thought it was hilarious. He kept giggling and stuff. And just to keep him like distracted or whatever, I pointed out that there was a hair that was like on his leg, like on his pants, you know, just this random hair that was sitting wherever it was sitting on his leg. And I said, I said something like, I mean, it wasn't sexual at all, but I said something along the lines of, you know, that there's this hair, but you know, there was a hair there or whatever, and then that turned into, you know, where did it come from, right? And I was asking, you know, was it his? Was it his? You know, did it belong to him? Did it belong to someone else? Was it like his sister's or whatever? And I was like, you know, I don't think it's long enough to be your sister's. It's not this, it's not that, whatever. And he said, I don't remember, he said something like, maybe it's yours or whatever. And I said, my hair doesn't look like that, you know, because my hair is straight and blonde. Of course, his hair is also pretty much straight and blonde. And anyway, I don't remember exactly how the conversation got around to it, but the only person who mentioned anything that I thought was weird was him. All of a sudden, because I said like, well, maybe it's yours, and he said, no, my penis isn't hairy. And I thought that was a weird thing to say, right?
Yeah.
But that's all that happened. I didn't touch him. I didn't like put my hands on his crotch. You know, I touched him. I kept trying to turn him around when he was turning, you know.
Sure.
But I didn't bond with him, right? I didn't do anything sexual whatsoever. And that's the weirdest conversation I've ever had with him. It's the only conversation that ever mentioned penises in any way that I've had with him that I can remember.
Just based on your pattern or practice before that, it just seems odd to me that he would bring up the word penis or talk about penis, and that did.
I was surprised he said it.
No, but for you, that didn't engage in a conversation about, you know, he's curious or asking about. I mean,
this
you
was
mentioned
years
pubic
ago.
hair. Okay.
This was like, I mean, I don't know how old he was, but he wasn't all that old. He was, I don't know. He was like 5 maybe.
Okay. It's very
But like, again, I nothing happened.
Okay.
So I don't know why he would say anything did.
How old when this conversation about?
I don't know, how old is he now? Do you know? It was about I'd say it's probably about a year ago.
About a year ago. Okay. And you're sure that conversation happened at church, not at his house?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that there's any other families that are going to contact law enforcement?
I don't know.
I mean, Buck, I think you do know. I think you're probably the only person that does know.
Again, I don't really feel like volunteering too much.
Okay. Well, you're denying anything, sure. But
Nothing ever.
okay.
I've not seen him naked. I don't know what his penis looks like. I've never touched it. I haven't done anything inappropriate with him, so I have no idea what he's talking about.
Okay. But things happen,
Mm-hmm.
and only something happened.
Yeah, something very minor.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
I
compared
know.
to the actual, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So are there other families with siblings and similar stories that are going to come forward?
I don't know.
I guess that's the phrasing of my question. You don't know because you don't know whether they'll come forward or not?
Pretty much.
Okay. But there are more families out there because you gave me a range of 6 to 8 different kids.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm counting up 3 or 4 in my head now.
You have to understand from my point of view. I know that you're stuck in a position where you're just trying to find out as much information as you can, and I get that. I would love to explain everything, but I also don't want to, be in prison for the rest of my life. And since being arrested and then being sent to King County, whatever the hell that place is called, you suddenly just lose contact with the world, right? Like, I've literally seen I've never even met my lawyer that I paid $30,000 for in December, okay? People talk about, the law being fair and everything, but it just seems like it's just designed to screw you over. Because, like, I wish I could make some kind of a deal where I felt like, I wouldn't be in jail, but I'd have, like, all kinds of limitations or whatever placed on me. That I'd be fine with. Programs I'd have to participate in or whatever. Staying away from people. I can understand all of that. Certainly, I don't want anything to ever happen again. And that's my number one goal in life at this point. But, like, I don't know how I could ever have my life back. But, and I don't mean like nothing ever happened to have my life back, but just like having the ability to ever work again, having the ability to ever see any of my friends or whatever, like anything, right? Like, I don't know how death isn't preferable. Okay? I really don't. I mean, it's just awful.
Did you have any questions?
I just don't know. You said that I don't remember which child you were talking about, but you never like touched them, you never saw them naked, you never. Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Did you see any of the children naked at all? Was there any time that?
No. I mean, I'm sure I was in the room maybe more than once. I was changed as a baby.
Well, sure. I just mean,
But,
like, any of the children you're talking about, the 6 to 8. Was there ever a time that you saw any of them naked, or they took their clothes off because you asked them to, or anything like along those lines? Okay. Was there ever a time that you got naked in front of any of the children?
No.
Because you did mention that you had touched penis, but you're saying that you never saw it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Because those are just those split moments,
Yeah.
quick things.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Very much so.
Did he see your genitalia, your penis or anything?
Nope.
Again, similar that, his hand would just go underneath your pants, but
Mhm.
he didn't see, nothing was exposed?
Right.
Okay. Was there anything else that you did want to tell us? Any other statements you want to make?
Would it change anything? I assume I'm just going to get sent to King County Correctional Facility again to sit there for, I don't know, another arraignment. And then, I don't know. I mean, I don't know how I'm not just screwed for the rest of my life at this point.
Well, I think taking ownership and accountability certainly helps
Helps
down
you.
the road.
How does it help me?
I think what we're thinking about too is how does it help the families? Because there are still these families out there that are sitting there thinking about these moments, these instances with you where you were alone with their child, or their child had an interest in you, and you guys used to hang out, used to be invited to their home and their parties, and now they're stuck with, did this happen with my child or not? And so maybe their kids say something, or maybe they don't. And maybe that kid grows up to have the same struggles you did because they didn't have the opportunity to do something about it at an early age, or have more involved parents that could have helped at an early age.
I still don't see how that incentivizes me to. I get it. I totally get it.
You don't think that's gonna help you down the road, though? If
No,
you...
I don't think I want to suffer for the rest of my life for this. That's what I'm saying. Like, being in jail is not just losing freedom, okay?
Sure.
It's losing every sense of normalcy. It's losing the ability to sleep or wake up or whatever on schedules that make any sense for you. It's losing the ability to choose any foods that you might want. It's losing the ability to dress with anything other than what they give you, clothes that even fit. It's losing the ability to ever be warm. I don't know if you haven't experienced this. They give you stuff that's so loose fitting, it's just awful. Like, and it's air conditioning all the time, freezing cold all the time. Then they yell at you if you put a blanket on. Like, everything about jail sucks. Like I said, if I could make some kind of a deal where I had restrictions placed against me or whatever, but I didn't have to do jail time, I would tell you absolutely everything.
Okay, so what you are saying is there is more to tell, you just...
Sure, but I'm terrified to mention anything you don't already know about.
Gotcha.
Because if I do, all I'm doing is extending how long I'm in jail. And I don't think jail is the right fit for this. Like, I know what the law says. Well, I don't even really know what the law says. Because, like, sentencing and stuff, no clue how that crap works, right?
But do you think, in the flip side of things, do you think that it's fair for...
I'm not saying it's fair for anybody.
Okay. All right.
But you're sitting here wanting me to completely incriminate myself as much as I possibly can. And all that's going to do is make it so that I will never be able to see daylight again. And that's just...
I think we're just seeking some truth and some information about some families out there that may or may not have children who are internalizing what happened and don't know how to properly channel it or move forward in life, and that could cause some serious issues down the road. So I think what we're trying to do is to maybe find out who they are so that we can start the process of however their healing process is, or just helping that family.
Again, this goes back to what I was saying before. I think the perfect solution, which of course the state will never allow, is I tell about every single thing that I've ever done, but I don't want to be alive for this. Like, there's no point in keeping me alive to just have me rot in jail. What good is that going to do? Like, supposedly it's a correctional facility, right? Regardless if it's a jail or prison or whatever, but like, there's no correction for this going on there. There's
no correction for what?
For people who have the problem I have.
Right, so you're kind of contradicting yourself, though, because you're saying that there's no correction for this.
So why keep me alive? That's not a contradiction. What's the point of me being alive to basically suffer my entire life for a few brief moments here and there of mistakes that I've made, right? If I could confess to absolutely everything I've ever done with a guarantee that I would be put to death afterward, I'd do it. That's what I'm saying.
Well, that deal obviously doesn't exist.
Okay.
And nobody in this room is in any position to cut any kind of deal. We cannot make you any promises. I think what we're asking is if you're willing to tell us other families that you've harmed. And it sounds like you're more interested in your own self-protection.
No, not protection. What part of death sounds like protection to you?
it's an escape. You're trying to escape from the harm that you caused. That's what that is.
No, I'm not trying
So-
to escape from the
'cause
harm
you-
that I've caused.
Because
I'm
you
trying
don't want to go to
escape from-
prison.
Yeah.
Okay, I understand that. I understand that. That's what I'm trying to say. You're trying to protect yourself because you don't want to go to prison. Okay.
Yeah, that's true.
So if you don't feel like telling us the other kids that you've abused, so we can take those steps. One of which, yes, of course, there would be a criminal investigation and it'd be held against you in court. Absolutely.
Mhm.
But simultaneously, it would allow some resemblance of healing for that kid and that family. And they could get that ball rolling now as opposed to, I don't know. So that's up to you. It's up to nobody else. And no deals are going to be offered to you here or
anywhere.
I'm not even in the position to be able to answer that. I don't know. That's not my role, my job, or anything like that.
I just think that in doing this work for so long that a lot of these cases, had the individuals received some type of support treatment after the abuse, they may not have gone on to be the abuser. So I think what we're also trying to accomplish here is to help those individuals and ensure that doesn't happen by offering them however type of support and resources that we can.
I just don't know what to do.
You said it yourself. You mentioned that you described it as a broken brain. Sorry if I'm misquoting a little bit, but you were born a certain way with a certain amount of attraction, but you did understand, you mentioned it, that other people who have that side of them could have been abused as a child themselves. And you said that you don't remember that abuse happening to you.
I mean,
So I guess that's exactly what I'm talking about. Is I'm worried, is there a potential that you've abused somebody that we don't know, that the family doesn't know, and that person is going to grow into somebody who's going to have similar struggles because they've suppressed this their entire life and struggle with the same thing that you yourself struggled with growing up. And it's turned into multiple felony cases against you.
yeah, I understand. But it's just hard to willingly screw myself over worse than it already is. I don't know. I mean, it's hard to think of anything other than just, I hate my life. That's all I can think of right now.
Do you want those other children to have that same thought process that they hate their lives at some point?
You know, guilt trips aren't going to work.
I'm not trying to guilt trip you, it's the truth.
It might be the truth, but the fact that you keep bringing it up is definitely a guilt trip. Of course I've thought about it. But it's so it's just so depressing, you know. I mean, how's my life not completely over? I mean, I'm 44. And if one case could be 3 to 5 years, and this ends up being 3 cases or more, or whatever, right? I mean, I was supposed to talk to my lawyer on Friday about, he had some, when I talked to him at my arraignment, he said, you know, they have a plan to, you know, before, you know, to do something before I end up in jail for the rest of my life. And I still never talked to him. I've been trying to schedule it for, you know, forever. And I have no idea. I don't know what options I've got. I don't know anything, nothing. The only option I know I've got is go to jail and stay there forever. It makes me not want to talk about anything. Because I mean, I just feel like a completely worthless human being. I don't suppose you got a bathroom I could use.
Is there anything else you wanted to tell us?
I don't think so.
Recording, and we can use the restroom. The time is 1:46 p.m. The date is till April 11th, 2023. I'm ending the recording.